We're going to go in the order in which these players were selected on actual draft night. So first up, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's wide receiver 1, taken 20th overall. There was a run on 4 straight wide receivers drafted after once Jackson was the first to go to the board. Of course, he went to Seattle. I gave him a C, and you gave him a B. And my not real issue, just in terms of going back and watching him, he's had 32 targets so far this season. He's had a weird amount of focus drops for Jackson Smith-Njigba. I would like, and a lot of the stuff they've thrown to him is just underneath, getting the ball in his hands, and he hasn't necessarily had a lot of yards after catch opportunity because he's been thrown to in traffic-heavy situations, if you will. He did have the touchdown catch on the post. I think that was against the Bengals, and that's more what you'd like to see. But I think they're trying to find a way to get him involved in the offense. And the only reason I gave him a C, not because I'm upset and I think he's going to be a bust, just because of the focus drops, and he hasn't been quite as involved in the offense yet.
Yeah, no, and they're trying to get him involved in the offense, trying to get him a ball. The one thing I did see, I probably would have left him at a C the first couple weeks or first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but I thought the last 2 weeks he's really starting to hit his stride a little bit, and sometimes these rookies take time. So I'm projected him and gave him the benefit of the doubt the way he has really started to come on the last couple of weeks.
No, I agree with that completely. And I think he's going to be fine at the end of the day. It's just a matter of, and in your experience, it feels like it's maybe gotten a little easier in the last 6, 7, 8 years, maybe a little less than that. But typically it's the transition for wide receivers can be tough sometimes, right?
It can. But I think it depends on the receiver too. So, and you got to remember, this kid didn't play a full year at Ohio State and didn't play in any all-star games, had a really good workout. So you have to go all the way back to the Rose Bowl, I believe against Utah was the last time he had any significant play time. So he's getting his feet wet again, if you want to say that, or he's getting his feet underneath him. And now you're starting to see him, what he showed when he was playing at the collegiate level, but you're not taking into account that this kid missed a whole year of football before he came into the draft.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because we talked to CJ and Garrett both in the pre-draft process, and both of them said on that 2021 team that Jackson Smith-Njigba was the best receiver.
Yeah,
and that was with Olave, and of course Marvin Harrison Jr. was 2 years younger, but that's noteworthy in and of itself. All right, the next wide receiver drafted, wide receiver 2, 21st overall, Quentin Johnston out of TCU, and he's had a rough go of it. I gave him a C-, you gave him a C-. I don't know what that means exactly, but
because there's no pluses. That's just dashes mean that, okay, I have a statement after the C.
Oh, I see.
Just to be clear, he put the dashes in the same color as the grade and then switched to red text for the explanation. So that makes no sense.
Devo is in no mood.
My finger dexterity trying to get that little dash in red was very difficult, and I finally just gave up on it.
I love that he actually has what I believe to be a legitimate explanation, but
it is. I couldn't get over there because then the grade turned red, and then it's like it's just a mess, and I'm wasting time. And
Devo takes solace in knowing that he spent 20 minutes trying to get the red dash in there, and he just couldn't do it. All right, so C- for Quentin Johnson from Rick, C- for me. He's had a tough go of it. He hasn't been used a lot, and after Mike Williams went down, I thought maybe they try to get him more involved, and I think, if I had to guess, he's probably struggling to pick up the offense maybe. And he had he dropped a back shoulder fade in the end zone against Tennessee early in the season, week 2, I believe it was, that he felt like one of those plays that can sometimes jumpstart a season that's not gotten off to a great start. So hopefully he picks things up, but it hasn't quite worked out yet for him.
No, I think he had 14 targets and only 7 catches to date. And Joshua Palmer seems to be the guy that's stepping up to replace what they lost in Williams. So, and then they got, Keenan Allen as well. But when I watched him, he was the one that didn't look as natural as he looked in college. And to me, from my experiences seeing rookies trying to adjust to the NFL, he is thinking too much. Whether that's understanding, okay, they make this big, long play call in the huddle. And, okay, if I have to make this adjustment, if I see this coverage, if it's man coverage, I'm going to take off. If it's zone coverage, I'm going to settle and run a hitch route. He just looks like he's thinking and just not out there playing with his natural instincts and his natural ability. And hopefully, as time goes along, that he'll become more comfortable and does not have to think as much as it looks like he's trying to think right now instead of just going out and playing.
What are those conversations like when, as a staff, when you're meeting about these players, and what are the conversations like when you're interviewing these players to get a sense of what the
Well,
jump is going to be?
how are you going to identify that till they get out there and actually start?
Yeah, but
playing?
you know how TCU's offense is run, and you know how your offense is run, so you can sort of fill in the gaps.
That's hard in an interview because you
Uh-huh.
don't know till they get out there. But you can see him, like I said, he's almost like playing by the numbers
Yeah,
and trying to draw and color within the boundaries
right.
instead of just going out there and playing uninhibited, if
Right.
that would be a word we can use.
No, that's the exact right word. That's right. I think of it sort of, and just bear with me here.
Oh my God. Oh wait,
Uh,
82 days. I'm sorry. I am really going to respect bear with me right here what you're going to say.
It's like when old or young, doesn't matter, but when someone's learning to play the guitar, for example, as a musical instrument, and you're in year one and you're doing everything by the book, you're following the exact note when it's supposed to be played. And when you've been playing the guitar for 30 years and you're in the Rolling Stones or whatever, you know what you're doing. Like, you don't need any sort of, you're just free flowing. You understand sort of innately how this thing works. And there you go. I knew Rick would love that one, Debo. Thank you, Rick.
But just so you know, I got kicked out of music class as quickly as I got kicked out of French class.
But you describe yourself something as a creative.
Is that what you?
So, well, I was gonna say creative savant. If you want to use savant, you use savant. But you like you appreciate art and such.
I have, yeah, I'm very artistic underneath this gruff exterior.
Yeah, rough is rough, whatever you'd like to use. All right, next up, and this is right in Rick's wheelhouse, Debo, and you can relate to this. I'm going to kick you while you're down. Jalen Reagor or Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson ended up being the last wide receiver taken in that draft class, and the Eagles went with Jalen Reagor. Of course, it worked out for Philadelphia, but in the moment, it was frustrating for some. And you wonder, where would the Chargers be if they had taken Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison, the two players drafted right after him? And you can't, no time machines here, but that's something I'm sure that fans of those teams have thought about. But Zay Flowers is the next wide receiver taken, 22nd overall. He's been a revelation in Baltimore because they have historically struggled to find these wide receivers, especially in the first round. They've signed and had success: Steve Smith, Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden. But this guy feels like a difference maker. And I gave him a B+. You gave him an A. And the only reason I gave him a B+ because of the guy we're going to talk about next, I wanted to differentiate them a little bit. But Zay Flowers has been special so far, Rick.
Well, you could have gave him an A- and the other guy an A.
You don't use minuses or pluses, so you can't tell me.
I don't, but you could have. So you left him in a category below. So you undergraded him.
Okay, well, you gave him an A, and the same grade as the next young man we'll talk about. But so where are you on Zay? He did have the drop game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but everyone on that team refused to catch the ball that game.
22 drops that game. But
but if you take that out of the equation, because that's just one of those games where everyone decided not to show up, whatever, except for Lamar.
right.
Every other snap he has been, it feels like, on point.
Yeah, no, he's been a difference maker for them on offense. I think him and Lamar have really developed a relationship. Lamar's starting to understand the type of routes he runs. Lamar does a great job putting the ball out in front of him so he gets an opportunity to run with the ball after the catch. Very quick twitched, even though he's not a strong runner after the catch. He can make people miss. So catching the ball very consistently, except for that Pittsburgh game. And he is right now at the receiver position, even though they have OBJ and a couple other guys, Bateman and some other guys. This is the number one option for them at the receiver position right now.
Yeah, Bateman. They have Aguilar, who I think was a first-round pick too back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So they, you mentioned Odell. They have a ton of first-round picks at the position, but Zay is maybe Mark Andrews is still the legit number one, but I think that Zay is 1A if he is not already one. All right, next up, Jordan Addison, the fourth wide receiver taken in this group, 23rd overall, went to the Vikings. And you talked a moment ago about Bryce getting better as the season progressed. Jordan has gotten better, and he had a lot to do with that team's win last whenever that was, Monday night against San Francisco, with Justin Jefferson on the sidelines with the hamstring. So he became the de facto number one. He played like the de facto number one. We talked on the last podcast about how in the first throw, he wasn't strong enough at the top of the route to outmuscle Travarius Ward for the interception, came back in the second quarter and did exactly that, and then sort of took over the game down the stretch.
Yeah, no, and he's showing, and it'll be interesting to see, and not that we're going to go down a different rabbit hole on this podcast, but all of a sudden, imagine what the Vikings offense is going to look like when Justin Jefferson does come back. And maybe 2 weeks ago, they were going to be potential sellers
Yeah.
at the trade deadline coming up next Tuesday, but now they may be buyers. And some guys they were thinking about potentially trading. All of a sudden, I think they've won 3 out of the last 4 games, and the games that they've lost were because they gave the game away with turnovers, not because they were physically just getting beat up, except that Philly game. Debo, that'll make you feel better. They ran the ball down the field on them like a track meet. But now that you have Hawkinson, that you have Jefferson when he comes back, when he's eligible in a couple of weeks, I believe, and now you know what Addison can do, they potentially could have one of the best duels since we had Jefferson and Thielen at the receiver position.
Absolutely. So we both gave Jordan Addison an A, and he is
him a B plus.
I didn't.
Oh, you give Addison an A?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give Zay a B plus to differentiate him from they're both great. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to give Jordan a little nudge above because of the way he's played down the stretch here.